The wind screamed across the frozen plains like a predator, tearing at the flimsy shelter wedged between jagged cliffs. Inside, the air was brittle, each breath a dagger of frost. Lyra, her skin a pale crystalline blue, rocked a fragile bundle against her chest. The child, her daughter, was barely breathing, her tiny chest shuddering as if even life itself was slipping away into the storm. Lyra's voice, though trembling, rose in song. A lullaby, old as her people, passed from mother to child for generations. The melody wove through the roar of the blizzard, soft, defiant, a whisper of love in the face of certain death. Her tears froze before they reached her chin. She pressed her lips to the infant's forehead, trying desperately to share what little warmth her body had left. The child's glow, faint veins of silver under her translucent skin, dimmed with every passing minute. Lyra's heart cracked under the weight of helplessness. She had prayed to the mountain spirits, to the ancestors, even to the stars. No answer had come. And now, as the shelter walls rattled and ice pushed its way through every seam, she accepted the truth. Her lullaby would be the last thing her child ever heard. Then, a sound. Not the shriek of wind or the groan of shifting ice. A crunch. Heavy footsteps in the snow. Lyra's eyes snapped open, terror stabbing through her grief. Nothing survived long out there. Nothing human, nothing alien. Only death. The shelter's entrance flapped violently. A shadow loomed, blurred by snow. For a heartbeat, she thought it was the Reaper spirit, come to claim them both. But when the figure staggered inside, shaking ice from heavy gear, she froze in disbelief. The stranger was not of her kind. His skin flushed with strange warmth, his breath steaming in the frozen air. His clothing, primitive yet resilient, was rimmed with frost. A human. Lyra recoiled, clutching the infant closer. Her people had heard of humans, distant wanderers of the stars, but none had ever walked these lands. And yet here he stood, snow melting against the heat radiating from his very skin. The child whimpered weakly. Lyra's song faltered. The human's eyes met hers, tired, concerned, and kind. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm battering the walls. The human lowered his hood, revealing a weather-worn face, skin flushed red from cold but alive with heat that seemed impossible in such a place. Frost clung to his lashes, and yet his breath came steady, strong, so different from her own ragged gasps. Lyra pressed her child closer, shielding the tiny body as though the stranger might steal her last treasure. "Stay back," she rasped, her voice raw from the icy air. The human raised both hands slowly, palms outward. His words were foreign, broken by the howl of the storm, but his tone was unmistakable, gentle, pleading. He gestured toward the child, then to the pack slung over his shoulder. Supplies, perhaps. Medicine? Heat? Lyra's heart warred with fear and desperation. The infant whimpered again, a thin cry swallowed by the wind. Her glow, once silver-bright beneath fragile skin, flickered like a dying ember. The human knelt, moving carefully, as though wary of startling a wounded animal. He pulled something from his pack, a compact thermal unit. Warmth spilled into the frozen shelter, not much, but enough to soften the air and melt the frost-crusting Lyra's arms. She inhaled sharply, unable to remember the last time she had felt air that wasn't biting her lungs. Still, the baby shivered violently. The human's brow furrowed. He reached out, hesitation flickering in his eyes, then extended his hand toward the child. "No," Lyra hissed, clutching tighter. But the infant writhed weakly, seeking warmth her mother could no longer give. The lullaby that had once calmed her now fell useless against the weight of death creeping closer. Lyra's chest tightened. If this was a trick, if this stranger meant harm, it would be the end. Yet if she refused, her daughter's breaths might simply stop before dawn. She loosened her grip just enough. The human's bare fingers brushed the infant's skin, only for an instant. The reaction was immediate. The baby gasped, a spark of silver light flaring across her body like lightning beneath the skin. The warmth surged from his touch, igniting her fading glow. Lyra's eyes widened, tears spilling despite the cold. Her daughter's heartbeat, weak, faltering, steadied beneath her trembling hands. The human staggered back, staring at his own hand as if it had betrayed him. The storm outside howled on, but inside the shelter, life had been stolen back from its grasp. The glow faded to a steady shimmer beneath the baby's skin, fragile yet undeniable. Lyra could hardly believe what her eyes told her. Only moments ago, she had been cradling a corpse in waiting. Now, her daughter's chest rose with steady rhythm, a faint cry breaking through the storm's howl. Her hands trembled. She turned toward the human, her voice sharp with desperation. "What are you? What did you do?" He shook his head, equally bewildered. He flexed his fingers as though searching for hidden wires or devices. His breath came ragged, but not from exertion, rather from confusion, even fear. The baby cooed faintly, nestling closer to her mother's warmth. Lyra's heart thudded with a mixture of gratitude and dread. The stories, old, forbidden tales whispered by the elders around dwindling fires, about the warm-blooded strangers who would come from the void. A race said to carry life within their touch. She had dismissed it as myth. Everyone had. And yet here he stood, snow clinging to his shoulders, proof written across her daughter's renewed glow. Outside, the blizzard screamed louder, rattling the fragile shelter. Snow forced its way through cracks, icy daggers piercing the thin canvas walls. The storm was worsening, threatening to bury them alive. The human noticed it too. He pulled a broken panel of alloy from the floor, bracing it against the trembling wall to reinforce their fragile cocoon. His movements were swift, practiced, someone used to surviving impossible places. Lyra's mind raced. If the clan discovered this man, would they see him as savior or curse? Prophecy always carried two edges. Legends warned that the same touch that granted life could also bring destruction. She studied him as he worked. His face was tired, his eyes shadowed with pain, yet there was no malice in his movements. Only purpose. He glanced at her child and then at her, his expression softening despite the storm hammering around them. The shelter creaked dangerously. Snow piled heavy against its sides. The human gestured toward the cliffs, where perhaps deeper caves lay hidden. His meaning was clear. If they stayed, the storm would entomb them. Lyra swallowed hard. She had already trusted him once, with her daughter's very life. Could she trust him again, to lead them into the blizzard itself? Her child stirred, glowing faintly in her arms, as if urging her forward. Outside, the storm roared like a beast awaiting its prey. The storm did not wait for their decision. With a thunderous crack, part of the shelter's frame snapped, ice blasting through the opening like shards of glass. Lyra clutched her child tighter, panic surging. The glow beneath her baby's skin flickered, steady but fragile. The human moved fast, pulling Lyra to her feet. His gestures were urgent. "Follow me." He tore open the flap of the shelter, and a wall of white chaos slammed into them. Snow swirled so thick it swallowed sight beyond an arm's length. The wind howled, clawing at their clothes and dragging their bodies sideways. Every instinct in Lyra screamed to stay put, to cling to the wreckage of the shelter. Yet she saw the determination in the stranger's eyes, a fire that refused to bend. With her baby pressed to her chest, she staggered after him into the abyss. The climb was brutal. Each step sank knee-deep into powder that numbed even through insulated boots. The cliffs loomed as ghostly shadows, jagged spires vanishing into white haze. The human forced a path, shoulders hunched against the gale, pausing only to pull her forward when she stumbled. Minutes blurred into eternity. The baby whimpered softly, and Lyra sang fragments of her lullaby, her voice carried away by the storm. The melody kept her sane, kept her legs moving. At last, the human pressed his hand to a narrow crack in the cliff face. He shoved snow aside, revealing a dark cavity. A cave. Shelter. Relief flooded her chest as they stumbled inside, the howl of the storm dulled by stone walls. Inside, the air was still frigid, but it no longer tried to rip the breath from their lungs. The human set down his pack and activated his thermal unit. Orange light glowed faintly, pushing back the cold. Lyra collapsed onto the stone floor, her child nestled in her arms. The baby stirred, tiny eyes fluttering open, glow faint but alive. The human crouched nearby, catching his breath. Snow melted from his skin, dripping onto the stone like silver droplets. He looked at the infant with wonder, as if he too could not understand the miracle he had sparked. But their respite was short. From the cave's mouth came another sound, distant at first, then louder. Not wind. Not ice. Voices. Lyra froze, her heart pounding. They were not alone. The cave filled with echoes, boots crunching on ice, voices rising in sharp, guttural tones. Lyra's stomach twisted. She recognized the cadence. Her own people. Hunters, scouts, perhaps even soldiers sent to scour the blizzard for survivors. The human stiffened, instinctively reaching for a tool on his belt. Not a weapon, but something that could be mistaken for one. Lyra raised her hand quickly, shaking her head. If they saw him as a threat, he would not live long enough to explain. The first figures emerged from the snow-dimmed entrance. Tall, cloaked in furs lined with frost, their eyes glowing faintly in the cave's dim orange light. At their center strode Eridan, a clan sentinel known for his unbending adherence to tradition. His gaze fell on the human instantly, narrowing to a blade's edge. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice booming against stone walls. "You shelter with an outsider." Lyra swallowed hard, her arms tightening around the baby. The child stirred, a faint pulse of silver light glowing through the blanket. Gasps rippled among the hunters. Eridan's expression hardened. That glow should have faded. No infant survives the storm's curse. He stepped closer, suspicion burning in his eyes. "What trick is this, Lyra?" Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. "It was not me. It was him." She nodded toward the human. The chamber fell into stunned silence. All eyes turned to the stranger, whose face was weary but calm. The baby whimpered, and when the human instinctively reached to steady her tiny hand, silver radiance surged again, brighter this time, filling the cave with shimmering light. The hunters staggered back, their disbelief etched in every movement. Some whispered prayers, others curses. Eridan alone stood firm, though his jaw clenched as if resisting the weight of centuries. The prophecy, one hunter breathed. The warm-blooded from the stars, the touch of renewal. Lyra met Eridan's glare with newfound strength. He saved her. Without him, she would be gone. Without him, we would have lost more than a child. We would have lost hope. The wind outside howled like a beast denied its prey. Inside, silence reigned. Finally, Eridan lowered his gaze. Not acceptance, not yet, but the first crack in his certainty. The human glanced between them all, clearly not understanding the words but feeling their weight. In his eyes burned no pride, only quiet bewilderment and kindness. And Lyra knew, this blizzard had not delivered death. It had delivered destiny.